Hey, hello guys, welcome back. So in this video, I will show you how to create virtual machines in VirtualBox and also set up networking so that your VMs can talk to internet. Okay, so let's get started. So if you see here, there is this option called new. Okay, and if you look at here, I already have a operating system installed. For you, if you are doing it this for the first time, and this space will be empty, you will not see anything here. Okay, so since I already have one VM saved or configured, and I see all the details here. Okay, for you it might look different. Okay, so that shouldn't matter. Okay, so now if you want to create a new virtual machine, so there is an option right here which you can click on new. Okay, and this pop-up comes up, and all you have to do is that define the name and name of my operating system. So I'll call it as a demo VM. Okay. And which folder or which location would you like to store your operating system file? So this is the default location that comes up. So if you want, you can change it, but I would like to leave as it is. So within your C, in users, that is your user home directory, there is a folder that gets created, which is VirtualBox VMs, and inside that you will have a folder, and inside that folder, and the folder name will be demo VM, and inside this demo VM, all the files associated with this specific virtual machine will be available, and the type of the operating systems. So you should be careful here, like if your intention is to create a Linux operating systems, make sure you select Linux, because selecting a different operating systems might not work. Okay, so I'm going to install a Linux operating system, and there are different flavors in Linux. Like if you can see, there are Linux, Arch Linux, Debian, Oracle, Red Hat, okay, Ubuntu and all, but I'm going to install CentOS. So CentOS is a clone version of Red Hat. It works similarly like Red Hat only. So I'm going to select Red Hat 64-bit and say next. A memory size. So again, pay attention here. Basically what happens is that every operating system has their own specific minimum requirements, meaning some operating systems might need minimum 2 GB of memory, or some need 4 GB of memory. Example, if you go with the Windows operating systems, so Windows minimum requires 3 to 4 GB of operating systems, then only it will boot up. So without 4 GB of memory, it will not come up, it will not boot. So pay attention to that, know what are the minimum requirements of the operating system that you are installing. So for Linux, 512 also should be fine, but I have enough memory, so I am selecting 10024, which is equivalent to 1 GB. Hard disk, yes, I would like to create a new hard disk. Okay, so sometimes you might have created, or you're usually in the internet and all, when you are working on hackings or when you want to install some applications, right? They give you hard disk by default. So all you have to do is that import those hard disks. But in my case, I would like to create a new hard disk. So I'm selecting this option. So disk file type. So if you look at the virtualizations, there are different types of virtualizations, and each virtualization has their own specific disk format. So here the VDI, it clearly states that this is for Oracle VirtualBox, whereas VHD or virtual hard disk, okay, is for something, and VMDK is for basically VMware, and VHD could be for Hyper-V. So like that. So every disk has a different format. Okay, for in our case, we are using Oracle VirtualBox, and its supported format is virtual box disk images. So I'm selecting the default one, click next. And storage on the physical hard disk, there are two options here, dynamically allocated and fixed size. So if you look at here, dynamically allocated hard disk file will use space on your physical hard disk as it fills up. Meaning, so let's imagine that your hard disk requirement is 1 TB. Okay. I'm just giving this example for easy understanding. But now your physical hard disk is only 500 GB available. But your client or someone is asking you to create a disk with 1 TB. But your available space is 500 GB. So you know that, you as a system admin, you might know that maybe down the lane in next 2 weeks, you will get the new storage where you can increase this 500 GB capacity by adding additional 500 GB and make it 1 TB. Okay, but now you are having only 500 GB. So in this case, we will select dynamic allocations. So what happens with this dynamic allocation is that your operating system will be created with 1 TB of disk. So the client or end user will be able to see 1 TB, but the disk will be filled gradually, right? Like we are not going to dump 500 GB of data at the same time. So gradually you will be increasing the space. So meanwhile, before it comes to the threshold or the limit, you can additionally increase the size to the desired capacity, which is 1 TB. That is what 1 TB is. Or that is what a dynamically allocation is. Okay. So this concept is primarily used in the cloud concepts or your Gmails, right? Like the moment you open up your Gmail accounts, Google is offering you 15 GB of free space. Okay. So that 15 GB is visible to you, but that space, as and when you start using it, I mean, the face in the backend, the space will be added automatically till 15 GB. Okay, so that is how they maintain, because otherwise, I mean, giving a fixed 15 GB for everyone who opens up a Gmail account is quite impossible. Okay, so that's the concept behind this. When I say fixed, and it should be there, like when you say 1 TB, so 1 TB should be available. Then only the disk will be created or VM will be created. So we are only using it for test cases, right? So I will go with dynamic allocation. And here comes the disk size. Okay, so again, every operating system has a different disk capacities. So depending on the requirement, you can choose the size. So for me, I'm not going to do anything in this VM. It's just a demo VM. So 8 GB should be fine. But if you have a different purpose altogether, or you want to store some data based on your requirement, you can always select this. Okay. So here is the thing, 8 GB. And then finally create. So now your VM is created. Okay, if you see here, it is in the power off state. So if you turn it on now, it will not work because I haven't attached any boot disk to it. Like in order for us to install operating system, you would need an ISO image, right? Like in generally, you get a brand new laptop and you want to install operating systems. So you will insert a pen drive or a CD-ROM, right? And then you will boot it up. Then all the files related to operating system installations will be dumped into your root volume. Same concept applies here as well. So we will have to attach a virtual drive which has an ISO, and then we will be able to install it. So to do that, you can click on settings here or right click, and then you have settings options here as well. So you can see the options. Okay, here the base, advanced, descriptions, okay, disk encryptions, and carefully click on the storage, and here is option controller, IDE controller, which is a CD-ROM. So click on empty, and here this box, right, click on this and attach the disks. So here I already have the folder mounted, so I'm able to see all the images which are part of the given folder. For you might have to browse and then select the right operating system. So I'm going to select a Red Hat, okay, a minimal operating system. So it could be anything, okay, it could be Ubuntu, it could be Windows, it could be anything else, okay. And the next thing is network. See, by default, when you create your operating system, it will be attached to a NAT network device. So basically, NAT stands for Network Address Translation, okay. So click OK. If you want, you can attach the second one, but for now I'm not attaching it because I will show that in the later session. Click OK. So now we have attached our ISO image. You can see here optical drive, CD, CentOS 7 minimal ISO is attached, and it has 1 GB of memory and these things. Now let's turn it on. So I'll turn it on the VM, guys. You can see the option start and a normal start. So starting a VM, like the speed depends on the base operating systems, the amount of RAM, CPU, the disk performance, all of this will matter, and based on that the boot time will be vary from system to system. If you see now, my operating system has come up and it is booting with the ISO. So I'm using up arrow here, okay. Your mouse will not work in the console at this point, but you can use your up arrow or down arrow on the keyboard to select the options. So the first option is install CentOS 7, second is testing the media, and the third one is troubleshooting. So I'm going to install, so selected the options, install CentOS 7 and press enter. So this looks very slow, but it is booting up. Yeah. So you can see that your VM is in the running state, and it is loading all the files. So you can clearly see that the virtual machine reports that the guest OS does not support mouse pointer integration. I'm not sure, guys, why this is taking a lot of time. Usually it should be faster. Probably I have updated my operating system yesterday. That could be the reason. Yeah. So see now it has come up with this thing. So select your keyboard layout, the language, continue. So at this point you can still use your mouse, or you can again use your keyboard for controlling this. So you can press tab, up arrow, down arrow for the options. So I'm selecting the date and time. So I'm in India, so I'm selecting the Asia, Kolkata. Done. And keyboard layout we already selected, language is okay, and installation source, okay. So we already mounted our CentOS ISO, so that will be the source from which we are going to install. So there are other methods of installing as well via network, okay, kickstart and all, but now we are only selecting this option like install from the boot device. And selection, software selections, click on it. So if you observe, I have attached a minimal ISO, and there is one more ISO called everything ISO, meaning the size is huge. It is around 7 to 9 GB in between, which has all the necessary software. So as part of your installations, you can select whichever you want. So since I'm installing a minimal version of this thing, okay, so just a moment. So I'm selecting minimal version, so I do not have that option where since I haven't have this everything ISO, you do not have the option. But let's say you have that option selected, you will have few more options here, and out of which one be server with GUI. So this server with GUI option will give you an interface, like GUI interface for your Linux operating systems. So that's widely used in the productions or data centers. So minimal installations is okay for us. Okay. So click say done. And installation destination is like source is a local ISO image, and destination will be the disk that we have attached, a disk of 8 GB. Okay, and VBox hard disk, select that. Done. So it is selected, and there are different partition methods. So we have selected the automatic partitions. And if you would like to set up any network here, you can select the network. So every network by default, it comes with DHCP. The host names, whatever the host name that you would like to have, you can select that. So currently the localhost .local domain is the default name. I will leave it as it is. So everything looks good here. Just click on begin installation, and it's time for you to set the password for the root. I'm setting password for the root, and the root password is so in Windows. So every operating system, right, has a root user or administrator, meaning they have unrestricted access to the entire operating system. So in Linux, that user is called as root. In all the Linux flavors, the root user is a super user. Okay, he has complete access. And in Windows, the root user is administrator. So both are the same. I mean, in Windows, administrator can do anything that he would like to do. Like he can screw up the machine or he can set everything. And the root also does the same thing. So in a day-to-day activities, using the root user is not recommended. Okay. So for that reason, we will create a normal user as a best practices. It is a good practice to create a normal user, use normal user on a daily basis, and go ahead with the root as and when you would need. Okay. So I'm going to select user Shiva, and I'm going to make him as an administrator so that he will have almost equivalent access as a root, but he's still under the root. Okay. And the password, and say done. So there are around 299 packages that are being loaded. If you go with the other settings like GUI and all, you have approximately around 1200 to 1300 packages, and that would take longer time than a minimal installations. And let's wait for this to get completed. And if you observe here, my mouse is not coming out, right? So your mouse will not come out of the console directly. You will have to press control, right control. Then your mouse cursor will be out. Okay. So guys, if you look at here, the installation is completed. Just click on reboot. So again, once you reboot, it will take some time for it to come up. So you can see there is an option here. So when you do not select anything, it will automatically select the first option. Enter. So now it has booted up and it is asking for the login prompt. So we have created two users, like the root user and another user Shiva. So depending on the requirement, you can log in as any of those users. So select root and then password. Now I have successfully logged into my VM that I have just created. So that's all for this session, guys. Thank you. And in the next session, I will talk about how do we set up a network, okay, within your operating systems. Thank you.